On August 20th, 1994, inside the Neal S. Blaisdell Center in Honolulu, Tyke, a 20-year-old African elephant, was performing for Circus International. Suddenly, she snapped. In front of a horrified audience, she attacked her groomer before turning on her trainer, Campbell. She grabbed him with her trunk, threw him to the ground, and crushed him to death, goring him repeatedly. With the crowd screaming, Tyke burst out of the arena and onto the streets of Kaka'ako. For the next 30 minutes, the 8,000-pound elephant rampaged through the business district, charging at cars and terrorizing onlookers. Her publicist, who tried to intervene, was severely injured. The Honolulu Police Department responded, cornering the bleeding and distressed animal. They opened fire. Over the course of several minutes, officers fired 86 shots from high-powered rifles and a shotgun into Tyke. Bullets tore through her massive body, hitting her legs, chest, and head. Finally, riddled with wounds and weakened by massive blood loss, she collapsed in a hail of gunfire. She lay on the hot asphalt for 2 hours, twitching and groaning, before she finally died from a combination of nerve damage, internal bleeding, and the sheer trauma of the dozens of gunshot wounds. On February 25, 2001, in Puerto Rico, a polar bear named Ted escaped from the Suarez Brothers Circus. The circus had brought 7 polar bears from Canada to perform in the tropical heat of the Caribbean, a decision that sparked immediate outrage from animal rights activists. Ted, stressed and disoriented by the extreme climate and cramped conditions, broke free from his enclosure. Local residents spotted the massive white bear wandering through the streets. Police were called to the scene. Officers arrived with rifles, cornering Ted in an open area. The bear, confused and frightened, showed signs of agitation. Instead of waiting for wildlife experts or tranquilizers, the officers opened fire. The first shot hit Ted in the shoulder. He roared in pain and tried to move away. More shots followed. Bullets tore through his thick fur and into his body. Ted staggered, bleeding heavily. He tried to stand but collapsed. The officers continued firing. By the time the shooting stopped, Ted had been hit 18 times. He lay on the ground, his white fur stained red with blood, breathing his last breaths. He died minutes later from massive blood loss and organ damage. On July 6, 1944, the Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey Circus was performing a matinee show in Hartford, Connecticut. Over 7,000 people filled the Big Talk tent. At approximately 2:40 p.m., a small fire was spotted on the side wall near the main entrance. The tent had been waterproofed with 6,000 gallons of gasoline mixed with 60 barrels of paraffin wax. The flames spread across the canvas in seconds. The circus had brought over 1,000 animals to Hartford, including 40 lions, 30 tigers, 30 leopards, 20 bears, 40 elephants, and hundreds of horses, ponies, camels, zebras, and smaller animals. The big cats had just finished their performance and were being led through portable metal chutes back to their cage wagons parked outside. As the fire raced across the tent roof, circus workers tried to move the animals faster, but panic set in. Some cats were still in their performance cages when the burning canvas collapsed on top of them. The cages became ovens. The animals inside clawed at the bars as the metal heated and their fur caught fire. Those that made it outside found themselves in the middle of a stampede of terrified people. Police officers, fearing the big cats would attack the crowd, opened fire. Several tigers and lions were shot dead in the grass outside the tent. In the menagerie tent south of the Big Top, another fire broke out. Dozens of animals were trapped in their cages. Zebras, camels, and smaller cats screamed as the flames consumed the tent. Approximately 60 animals died that day, most burned alive in their enclosures. On November 24, 2017, in Paris, France, an 18-month-old tigress named Mevy escaped from the Bourmont Moreno Circus. The circus had recently set up in the 15th arrondissement near the Eiffel Tower and was preparing to open to the public. Around 5 p.m., residents spotted the 200-kilogram tiger wandering through the streets. Panic spread quickly. Police and firefighters were called to the scene. The circus owner, Eric Borman, arrived with a rifle. He claimed the lock on Mevy's cage had been cut, allowing her to escape. Mevy was disoriented, moving through the streets near the Garigliano Bridge. Borman tracked her down. When he found her, instead of attempting to tranquilize or recapture the young tiger, he raised his rifle and opened fire. Multiple shots rang out. Mevy collapsed on the pavement, dead. Firefighters arrived minutes later to find the tiger's body lying in the street. Borman was taken into custody by police for questioning. Animal rights activists condemned the killing, arguing that tranquilizers should have been used. The incident sparked renewed calls to ban wild animals in French circuses. In September of 1916, the Sparks world-famous show's circus arrived in Kingsport, Tennessee. Among its attractions was Mary, a 5-ton Asian elephant. On September 12th, a hotel worker named Red Eldridge was hired as an assistant elephant trainer. That afternoon, during the elephant parade, Eldridge reportedly prodded Mary behind the ear with a bullhook to get her to move. Mary, who was reaching for a piece of watermelon, became enraged. She grabbed Eldridge with her trunk, lifted him into the air, and slammed him against a drink stand. She then threw him to the ground and crushed his head under her massive foot, killing him instantly. The crowd panicked, and cries of, "Kill the elephant!" filled the air. The circus owner, Charlie Sparks, knew he had to act fast to save his show. He agreed to execute Mary. The next day, on a rainy and foggy September 13th, Mary was transported by rail to the nearby town of Irwin, where a 100-ton derrick car was waiting. A crowd of over 2,500 people gathered to watch the spectacle. A chain was wrapped around Mary's neck, and the derrick began to lift her into the air. But the chain broke. Mary fell to the ground, breaking her hip. A second, heavier chain was brought in. This time, it held. Mary was lifted again, her massive body dangling from the crane. For several minutes, she kicked and struggled, her trumpeting cries echoing through the rail yard. Finally, she went limp. After hanging for 30 minutes to ensure she was dead, her body was lowered and buried in a hastily dug grave beside the tracks. The horrific event remains one of the most disturbing chapters in the history of animal cruelty in America. On May 7, 1997, in the small town of Carrolltown, Pennsylvania, the Franzen Brothers Circus was performing a fundraiser for a local school. The main attraction was circus owner and veteran animal trainer, 50-year-old Wayne Franzen, and his 3 Bengal tigers. As the show began, in front of an audience of 200 school children and their parents, Franzen entered the ring. Seconds later, as he turned his back, a 400-pound tiger named Luca lunged at him. The massive cat clamped its jaws around Franzen's neck and head, shaking him violently. The crowd watched in horror as the tiger dragged Franzen around the ring like a rag doll. Other circus workers rushed in, desperately trying to beat the tiger off with sticks, but it was too late. The attack lasted only a few seconds, but the damage was catastrophic. An autopsy later revealed that Franzen had died from a massive loss of blood caused by the deep bite to his jaw and neck. The tiger had severed major arteries, and he bled to death in the center of the ring, in full view of the terrified children he had been trying to entertain.